Hey folks, John Kelly, welcome back. Law enforcement life coach with your Sometimes Heroes Need Help podcast. Hey, I got a firefighter guy who's, listen, you know how we always bust balls on firefighters and cops? And admittedly, firefighters are a lot smarter than cops because they've managed to figure out a way to get paid while sleeping. Um, Andrew Douglas one-upped all of us. Not only was he a firefighter, but he eventually moved out to Costa Rica. And he had to come inside because the sound of the ocean and the wind was drowning his recording. So, yeah, man, I'm sitting down with Andrew, entrepreneur, mental health advocate, previous firefighter, and he's going to tell us about his journey, his story, how he fell, and then how he picked himself back up again, and what he's doing now for the first responder in that community. Developed an app. We'll kind of get into all that as well. But going to be an interesting story, man. Andrew, it's good to see you, brother.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
It's
man.
it's always
No,
great to
thank you.
talk to my brothers on the other side of law enforcement. So I'm sorry we
Yeah,
get
man.
paid for sleeping, but
Yeah, you do. Listen, please, you can't tell me any different, man. I know. I've been in the firehouse, and actually, that's one of the things that we need to do a better job on our side of the shop is acknowledging that sleep is so critical to our overall health that
oh,
catching an
100%.
hour isn't a big deal if you're on duty. It's actually probably should be mandatory, like when we start looking at big picture things. But before we dive down that rabbit hole, man, um, firefighter up in Washington, right? Washington State.
Yeah, so I started my career in like a small rural community
Right.
in Washington State, which was a very great opportunity to learn for me, right? Like it was we kind of called ourselves cowboys, right? We You didn't have the personnel to achieve the job like you would in a big city. So we had to do a lot with a little.
Okay.
So for me as like a firefighter and a paramedic, right, like it was a awesome opportunity to learn and grow. Ultimately, I left to go to the big city, right, and not necessarily the big city, but Lakewood, Washington, which is just south of Seattle. So yeah,
Okay.
I I made that transfer, and it was a great choice for me. It was a great career, and I miss it a
Nice.
lot, but wouldn't change the world for it.
All right. What do you miss?
So I think for me, like the thing I miss, I don't miss the calls. I don't miss waking up at 2 a.m. for a stub toe that somebody
Right.
calls 911 for, right? It's the camaraderie, right? Like
Sure.
as a fellow law enforcement officer that like camaraderie is everything. And it was that sense of family for me. Kind of going back, and I hate to like talk about my childhood too much. You know, we're trying to talk about this, but I feel a lot of my childhood impacted me today of where I'm at, right?
Sure.
Um, for me personally, it was my father. I didn't have the best relationship with him. He wasn't involved in my sports and the things that I cared about, and that deeply affected me, right? Kind of having this like sense of trying to find more of that father figure, that family.
Right.
And I found that early on in the fire service, right? Which
Hmm.
is unfortunately why I kind of wrap my identity around the
I was
fire
going to say
service.
that it served a purpose like immediately, but it's a double edged sword, isn't it?
Amen. It is. Yeah, it unfortunately took me to hit rock bottom to realize that I'm way more than just a firefighter, a union brother, a union leader, and having that ability to hit rock bottom while it sucked has been probably the biggest, as a person, the biggest growth for me to realize that like I am more than just a job, right?
You know what, Andrew? A lot of people don't figure that out, brother.
And unfortunately, you're right because I know many brothers and sisters right now that are struggling still in the job or have left and are struggling even harder. It's because they've wrapped their identity
Yeah.
around their job, and it's just not healthy.
And it's funny. So in the past, I've drawn an analogy between our police departments, our firehouses with gangs. Like we always look at the street gangs. Like why are these kids in street gangs? What's and it's
Mm-hmm.
obvious, right? It's that becomes a sense of family. They matter in the gang.
Mm-hmm.
They're acknowledged. You know, for whatever they do. They get acknowledgement, they get praise, they move up in
Mm-hmm.
status. Right, all the same shit that we thrive on and getting acknowledged. We move up the ranks. We're given more
Yeah.
responsibility, and it's like when you start drawing those parallels, we're like, well, wait a minute, the gangs aren't good, right? Right, but and treating our firehouses or our PDs as our family when we have a real one at home, not good.
Yeah. It's not healthy. No,
No,
and I think that's a great point you bring up, right? Because it's that sense of family and connection that humans intrinsically need, right? Like we
right,
need connection, we need family. Um, but you're at the end of the day, it's a job, right? Like when you leave, it's gonna keep going. It doesn't
right.
need you, right?
No,
Like
and
you may
sometimes
think it
it
does,
doesn't
but it
even
doesn't.
want you. You know?
No, exactly.
Oh my God. That's fun. So I mean, it's nice to be able to laugh and joke about it, but when you're going through it, man, it's heavy duty. So tell me
Yeah, it
about
was.
that. Yeah, tell me about that. If I and listen, I fucking hate stepping back, right? Because we've moved past that, right? But I think for people to appreciate where you're at now, they need a glimpse at where you were and how you got there. So maybe the listener can do a sidestep and maybe not fall in the same hole, and maybe help them, spare them all that pain.
Yeah, and I think like my main mission in coming out and um, talking about my struggles and being very open when I left my fire department is that I've found a sense of hope and peace in my life now, um, and I want people to know that you're not alone and that there's hope that you can get better.
Sure.
You just got to put it in. You got to put in the fucking work to make it happen, right?
Yeah. And
It
nobody's
doesn't.
going to do it for
It's
you.
no, you got to do it yourself. So no, I think it's. I hate to dwell on the past or the future. I've really learned to try to like ground myself and be present in the moment more than I was in the past, right? But
Sure.
I think, like you said, it's super important that we start where where my symptoms and how it affected me, and so yeah, kind of like I said, I left in 2016 from my old department, right?
Right.
And got hired with a big department. We were busy. That's what I was looking for, more action, getting fired on my first shift, right? Like that
Sure.
was my dream, like be a great firefighter, great paramedic. And like I said before, it was kind of my life, right? So joined the union really quick, right? And focused all my time on the fire department and the union.
Now,
Over
what do you
the
got
years,
going on at home right now? Do you have a family at home when you're on the job as a firefighter?
yeah, so I had at that point I had a young daughter and a young son,
Okay.
and my wife's at home. Um, living the American dream, you would say, right on
Right.
the outside.
2.3 kids, white picket fence, the whole nine
Exactly.
yards.
I had it all, right, and I was blessed for what I've had, and I've kind of come to find myself a lot more grateful now for just the little things in life, right? Where before I really relied on other things to make me happy, right? Like stuff. Um,
No,
yeah,
no,
buying
say it's
toys. Like
not so.
now, it is different though when
Listen,
it comes
do
to
they
fishing
do
gear.
they
Like
have
that's
do they
totally
have
different.
do they have Amazon deliveries in Costa Rica?
No, I'm glad they don't
You
because
know what?
I
That's the
love
key,
not
man.
having it.
That's the key to
Yeah,
financial health. It's not having goddamn
yeah,
Amazon delivering shit to your
yeah.
door every day. Oh my God.
Well, I mean, it's instant gratification, right? Like that's become
Figured it
the
out,
the
man. They
American
figured
way.
it out. Wow.
Yeah, take
So
advantage of it.
you gratitude, man. Being grateful for the little things.
Yeah, I think I would say like losing my sense of ego and being grateful of everything that I have in my life and like the opportunities I have because working in an urban environment, right, where there's a lot of poverty and you see so much suffering, um, it it's really easy. And before, I'll be honest, like I wasn't grateful for the things that I had.
Right.
But now, like reflecting back, I am right. Like every little thing I have, like I'm so lucky. Like I live in a country that right now in Costa Rica, it's fairly poor, but they're very happy. They're very happy people. And
And
then
and
you ask
and
yourself
and
why.
and why? Yeah, why, man? Let me cut you off. Why? Why are they so friggin' happy in Costa Rica? I mean, I know a bunch of my buddies that when they go to the DR, they're very happy, but that's a different podcast and a different storyline. But yes,
That's
but so
fishing, yeah.
yeah, they're not fishing. So yeah, man, what is it about Costa Rica, man, and where you're at this place?
Yeah, I think it comes down to values, right? My my adopted father down here when we moved down, he came from Costa Rica and went to college in the U.S., got his master's at Mississippi State, right? And these people in Mississippi took him in as
Hmm.
family. And so when we got down here, he said that like I feel it's my job to give back, right? And to
Wow.
pay it forward. And so he
Wow.
kind of took us under his wing, right? And so we got to know the culture really well through him. We spent a
Wow.
lot of time together.
And you didn't
And
know this
he
gentleman in the States, did you, Andrew?
no,
Oh,
no.
wow.
So this is just a chance meeting when we moved down here and we're looking for
Right.
a place to rent initially, right? And but he told me this about the culture that was very I could feel it, right? He said how they view their life down here is God, family, and job. I personally, so I have my own personal beliefs and faith, and I view that everybody should have their own
Sure.
opinions, right? But really, that number one in God is more in faith, I say, right? In that you need to have faith in something else than yourself, whatever that
Absolutely.
is.
Right.
If you can find that, it's huge, right? And so they also don't value money and possessions as much as we do in the States, right? If you got a big house and a big car, that means you've made it, right? Well, doesn't mean you made it. If your family's all messed up, you're messed up. Like, no, that doesn't mean you made it,
Yeah. If we
right?
take a critical
So,
eye, man, it doesn't always wash out, does it?
no, not at all. So, like, here's a great example. Like, we need to get some work done on a foundation here at our place, and like, they'll turn down jobs to like go on a family trip,
Hmm.
and they need the money. Like, they struggle financially, right? But that time together with family is so important. And
There's
it just
some lessons to be
there's
learned there, brother. There's some
absolutely
serious
there is, and
lessons
I,
to be
I think
learned.
that stuff that's some stuff that like we really as Americans need to reflect on, of like what, and that's why I say core values to me like super important. Of like for me, like compassion is everything. Like whether being a paramedic or a firefighter, like you need to be compassionate. And same with law enforcement, right? You need to
Right.
have that sense of compassion. Accountability is another huge one for me. Like holding myself accountable for my actions um, is something I didn't do before that has changed my life by following that. And then uh, loyalty is another important um, and really important core value to me. And that not necessarily people need to be loyal to you, but you need to be loyal to your values as a person.
Right.
Um, and that's just super big. And then lastly, for me is family. I put, we kind of jumped around, but I
Yeah.
during that time of struggle, right, I put everything ahead of my family.
Right.
Um, and I have to be accountable to the negative impacts of my actions during those times of struggle, and try to work on that today to grow as a parent, as a person, to just be better.
Yeah, man. It's what you say that, and I think when we're in it, we tell ourselves lies that are very
One hundred
believable.
percent.
Like the reason I'm working so hard is to support my family so they can have everything I never had growing up. That's what I used to tell myself. But in all actuality, I just didn't want to be home because being home meant that I actually had to give a fuck. And being home meant that I
Mm-hmm.
actually had to try. Being home was hard. Like it, work was
One hundred
easy,
percent.
right? And so I think once you own that, once you take that accountability, I think some good things can start happening.
Yeah, I mean, I believe everything in half life, everything in life happens for a reason, right? Um, but yeah, that accountability piece is huge in life, right? Like, um, what we do today, how is that going to impact somebody in the future, right? Like, what are my actions today going to do to make a difference in myself and others? You know, that's huge. So yeah,
And you know this, you know, you making and shifting the priority from work being this awesome firefighter that really it doesn't matter because we'll just find another awesome firefighter to do the job. Um, to the guy that your kids need you to be, man, and your wife. I mean, that's really
I
where the
fail
rubber
daily
meets.
though.
Yeah, huh?
I said I fail daily.
Yeah, well, yeah, but
But
I mean,
I believe in failure. I look at failure differently, right? Then I don't view failure as a negative thing, right? I view failure as an opportunity to learn. And so now instead of like in the past, like where if I failed, I was so hard on myself. It's like, no, okay, you're not going to be perfect as a dad always, right? You're
right,
not going to be
right.
a perfect husband all the time, but it's okay to fail, but you know, you got to learn from those failures instead of just keep doing them
Yeah.
over and
Well,
over
and
and
that's
over
where that
again.
accountability comes in, you know? I mean, like, hey, all right, and, you know, I agree with you on that failure, man. This is the other thing, you know, if you're afraid to fail, like you'll never grow because you'll never do anything outside your comfort zone. And then so you sabotage your own personal growth and development, you know? And I think
100%.
I mean, so what do so listen, it's easy to say, well, I don't view failure as this and I don't well, you know, a lot of people are going to call it bullshit, man, because I know how it makes me feel inside. So how do we get past that? Like, we know that failure, right? We know now because we've been around the block a little bit that
Mm-hmm.
failure, the only way to look at it is through the lens of an opportunity now to do better, to be better, to grow. But there were times in my life where I don't have to. I'm not going to put the effort into my marriage because if I fail at that, then I can't fail at something I don't put the effort into.
I think I just the word pops up in my head when we're talking about this of vulnerability, right?
Right.
I view vulnerability. I see before I thought vulnerability is like this huge weakness, right?
Oh,
Like,
right,
oh,
right,
you're a
right,
pussy, right?
right.
Like,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's like that's it connects with failure, right? Like if you're not vulnerable and trying something new or going outside your comfort zone, how are you going to know? Like, how are you going to grow without, you know, failing? You have to fail. Like
Isn't it crazy
you
that
have to make mistakes.
isn't it crazy that somewhere along the way we were indoctrinated into the idea that failure was unacceptable. And so I think that ultimately ended up keeping a lot of people from even making the attempt. Like, well,
100%.
I'm never going to be able to do that, so I'm not even going to try. And if I don't try, well then technically I didn't fail at it because I didn't try. And it's that bullshit that keeps you stuck.
Yeah, you know, I think it's like for us, like jumping down to Costa Rica is like this huge, like, I mean, we came down here for multiple reasons, right? But like, it's that the opportunity, like, we took this huge risk,
What was the
right?
driving force to go to Costa Rica? Because I can tell you what, I don't like driving 30 minutes down the road, right? That's that, you know, you left the country, you know, and you went to a country, you probably weren't fluent in the language,
No,
probably
but I
didn't,
am now.
yeah, probably didn't really know a lot of the customs and etiquettes and the do's and don'ts. And you packed up, man. So what's that all about, man?
Well, I mean, like towards the end of my career, right? Like I, so in 2021, I think it was, I ended up going to an inpatient facility and we can circle back to that later, but, and all I thought about was coming back to the job, right? And I realized like when I got back to the job, like holy shit, like I don't have it in me anymore. Like that confident, cocky paramedic that I was before and firefighter, um,
Hey,
that
hey,
had disappeared, right?
hey, Andrew, let's circle back right now.
Okay, yeah,
So
let's do it.
you go to so you're doing your thing, man. You're firefighter, small town, firefighter, big town. You're rocking it. You're busy. You're doing your thing, but you're putting all your efforts and energies into being the shit hot fireman. And take it away, brother.
Yeah, so I think we need to start in like 2018, right? Like that's like reflecting back, that's when
Yeah,
like a lot of my issues started coming up, right? Where I'm doing a lot of like self isolation of like hiding in my room, whether it's at the station or at home. Um, but it really like I started like I would just like go into like a Halloween store, right? Like I had this really fucked up hanging that messed me up pretty good, right? And like going to the Halloween store, like right after that, like my holy shit, my heart's racing, I'm sweaty, I'm like panicky, like I gotta get the fuck out of here, right? Because it was seeing a person hanging
okay.
in the Halloween store that like had this moment for me, right? But I'm still thinking this is normal at this point.
Mm.
And so then I'm having trouble sleeping, having these like horrible recurring nightmares over and over and over again, right? To where I'd wake up like in a panic, so, like sweaty. My wife was like scared to be in bed with me at times because I would
Sure.
get violent. Um, I was very quick to temper. I was drinking probably too much than I should have at that time.
Sure.
I was keeping myself awake too because of these nightmares, right? So I'd go days without sleeping on purpose.
And
Just
sleep isn't important at all to your overall health and well being.
so after leaving the fire service, that was the thing I noticed the most was like getting good night's sleep and like having healthy rest, like changed my
Yeah,
life, you know.
fundamental.
So
So
yeah, so I'm
you're
I'm going through all
spiraling,
this
man.
shit,
You're
right?
spiraling, man. Yeah.
Going downhill, going downhill, right? 2019 hits. Um, Go out fantasy football draft party, right? With my best friends and yeah, I mean, I'd been thinking about suicide at that point where I'm
This
like,
is and the catalyst for this starts back with the hanging.
yeah. So I mean, it's a multitude of calls that like had kind
Sure,
of I
I get it.
consumed, but yeah, that's kind of like this kind of triggering event, I guess you could say, that like
Okay.
continued to spiral out of control, right?
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I go to this party, we're having fun, but I'm like really hurting inside, right? Like I'm sad, I'm I feel alone. Um, and my buddies are like, stop being a pussy, and like not about this, but just like, what's your problem? Like,
Right.
and I'm like, how do you guys not see this, man? Like I'm hurting, like, and it, again, that comes down to vulnerability. Like I was too afraid to be vulnerable with my friends,
Sure.
which are the people that you should feel comfortable being vulnerable with, right? And so I got in a fight with my best friend. I said, fuck it, I'm going home.
Yeah.
I left early and I was like, yeah, this is it, right? So this is like probably 11 o'clock at night, and um, my wife, she somehow heard me come in. We were staying with some friends. So I don't know the whole story behind how she found out I got home.
Right.
But she comes out to the shop where I kept my guns and whatnot, and I got home and was like, okay, I'm gonna go kill myself. So I was going to get my pistol, and she came in like right as I was like trying to put a round in,
Yeah.
and somebody was looking out for me that day, right?
Right. No, it's
And
little
sorry, it's hard talk.
little
It's still hard
divine
talking about
intervention
this.
there, man. Little divine intervention right there.
Yeah, so we had at that point, like my fire department had been doing a peer support program, right? So I had somebody, my wife, first of all, take away the gun. Um, but I had somebody I could trust that I could reach out to.
Yeah.
His name's Dave, and he came over that night and was with me all night. And so like I took it in my own hands, like, dude, I can't keep doing this, right? Like
Right.
this
Right.
is
Yeah. Yeah.
not. I I still kind of struggled at that point after that with like suicidal ideation, right? But
Sure.
So then I made the choice myself to like, okay, I need to go get help, right?
Right.
So I went and saw a psychiatrist. Well, actually, it was a nurse practitioner, but semantics. And so started doing medications and therapy and stuff, right? And looking back, I still was putting the job and everything over myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I wasn't necessarily. I don't feel like I feel like I could have done better at like listening and doing my shit that they're trying to teach you in these tools to like work through your shit, right?
Right.
And I wasn't doing it, and so I continued to kind of go up and down and struggle right over the next like 2 years until a point where again I was suicidal. I was in bed for 5 days. I had multiple plans of like how I'm gonna do it, but
Right.
I don't want my family to see it. It's like all
Right.
those things.
At like at
And
that
then I
point,
also had a lot of
Andrew, I'm sorry to cut you off, man. At that point, you're speaking to a therapist. You're trying to,
mm-hmm.
you're talking to somebody, right? You're talking, but you're still kind of staying stuck. Um, at least that's my assessment, right? You're staying stuck. You're really not
100, yeah.
progressing through this. So, what do you think was keeping you stuck? Like, what? Because I'll sit here and go, why the fuck would you want to stay there? First of all, right? So then, like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that I'm almost saying like it's a decision. I'm putting it on you. It's a decision you're making to stay there. You're already talking to somebody. You're getting help.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you still stuck? And I mean that in the nicest supportive way.
No,
Like, why are you still stuck? Because there's somebody right now that's doing what you were doing, that's in therapy, but they're fucking stuck, man, and they're not progressing the way they want to or they think they should be. So, what is it that you did to help move that needle?
well, I mean, in the moment, right? Like I'm nobody at work knows I messed up, right?
Okay.
Like besides my best friend, like nobody knows I messed up still at this point. And for years, like going on, I was very good at being at work and like putting on the show of this like happy
Sure.
and joking
Right.
and
Yeah.
Robin Williams esque guy, right?
Right. Right. Right.
Who's
That makes
really
sense.
just
Yeah.
suffering in silence.
Sure.
And because I was too afraid, I was so worried about being a burden with my crew and that they couldn't trust me. Because at the end of the day, like I need to be able to save them. Like
Right.
I
Yeah.
have to be on my game to be able to take care of them, right? So I'm so afraid to like for people to find out.
Was that in your mind,
So
Andrew, or do you think was that something?
huge.
I mean, because do you think that if you had just said, "Hey guys, I'm struggling, and I'm getting help with this issue," do you think that they would have rallied around you, or do you think that they would have kind of ostracized you?
No, I think they would have rallied around me, right? Like I worked for a very progressive and great organization with like a lot of support and resources that a lot of people don't have, right? So I'm
Right.
blessed in that way. But it was still like something in me was holding me back from being open with these people because again, that reflects on part of my life, right? Where um, I was always afraid of being a burden,
Mm.
and so I didn't want to speak up. Um, because I didn't want anybody to think any different of me, right? Like I didn't want people to think um, that I was crazy. I
Right.
kind of am still, but whatever.
No.
But like in reality, that's stupid. That's not how you should be thinking, right?
Right. Right. Right.
Um, and so like because I have all these resources and support around me, but I'm like too afraid to like seek it. Um, so for me, like it was really just like I had to face the pain, right? Like face those things head on. And after that, like kind of, I say my friends and my fish saved my life for a second time, right? This
Yeah.
other divine intervention. So I'm not doing my shit, and I'm augering in and getting worse again, right? And suicidal, and that was in like December. And so yeah, I mean, I have this moment of freak out. I call it like this. I don't know how to describe what it's like. unless you've experienced it, but it's like this out of body experience, freak out of being triggered. And it actually came down to gratitude, right? My kids were being ungrateful and all the stuff. And like, I just flipped it. So for something about that made me flip out, right?
Okay.
To the point where I got the police called on me, right? I didn't hurt anybody. I didn't hurt myself. Like there was no
But
threats or
you
anything,
probably
but
scared the shit out of a lot of people.
for sure.
Right.
And so that was like a huge moment. Like, holy shit, my kids are seeing cops talking to their dad
That
with
just
guns out.
happened. That just happened.
Yeah.
Oh fuck.
So that was like a huge defining moment in my life of like,
Right. Yeah.
holy fuck, bro.
Hmm.
Like you gotta take care of yourself.
Right. Right.
And so
Right.
my buddies, so I go into isolation mode and my buddies, I'm not sure if my wife had talked to him or not, but they're like, you're going fishing with us. No excuse, right?
Right.
And I catch this beautiful steelhead. Like it was the biggest steelhead and best steelhead I've ever caught. Great fight, awesome. And like that was my moment of like, okay, I need to walk away from the job right now. Not necessarily quit, but I need to go somewhere else. Like
Right.
I'm not able to do this on my own. So I went to like this inpatient facility called Deer Hollow. It's out of Utah.
Heard of it.
And there it's awesome. It's the shittiest experience of my life, first of all, because like
Right.
I'm having to like learn how to like talk about my feelings in front of a bunch of other first responders, right? Like, holy shit, you want to talk about
Yeah,
uncomfortable?
man.
These are people you don't know, and you're
Yeah.
having to tell them your whole life story. So like Deer Hollow was a very great experience for me because what I they don't just focus on the trauma that you have now, right? Like they focus on starting from when you were a child, like how were you raised? Like how could you like what maladaptive skills did you learn
Mm-hmm.
from your parents that can get you to where you're at today, right? And
Right.
so they start from there and like work through your career. So yeah, I mean, I was there for like 40-ish days, I think. And you know, the big thing they taught us there is that you gotta feel to get better, you gotta feel that pain. You gotta feel it. And instead of suppressing it with something, you just gotta feel it. And it was a great
Kind of face it,
opportunity.
right? Kind of face it.
Yeah, you gotta face it.
Huh.
You gotta stare it straight. You gotta look at yourself in the mirror and say, like, what are you gonna do today to make yourself better? Right? Like what are
You
you
gotta look you in the mirror. You have to do that. Yeah, man.
exactly?
Powerful.
But again,
Powerful.
it comes down to and that's where I developed my core values, right?
Right.
Um, and like that was one thing they preached of like having you need to have like this foundation to bounce off of
Right.
um in your life and like lead your life in a way. And so, you know, I while I'm there, I'm all I'm thinking about is going back to the job, right? Because I missed it so much.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, all my buddies there in Deer Hall are like, dude, you cannot go back right now. Give it some more time. And I'm like,
Mm.
no, I'm getting out of here and going straight back. So
Mm.
basically, I was back to work within, I don't know, 2 weeks to a month.
Okay.
Um, and that was probably like the worst mistake I've ever made.
Okay.
But in a way, I don't regret it, right? Because it's got me to where I'm at
It
today.
seemed like the thing to do at the time.
Yeah, because that was my safe place, right? That's where I could
Right.
escape. Um, you know, if I'm at home and struggling, they know it, right? But I could go to work and put on this facade and
Yeah, man. Yeah,
nobody knows.
you can be a lot of different people at work, man. Very true. Wow.
Exactly.
All right. So
So yeah, I mean,
you go back to work probably way too soon. And how'd that work out for you?
mm-hmm, pretty shitty.
Yeah.
My first call back was this old man in a adult family home that was choking on a hot dog. And normally I'm like jump right in there and get to action, right?
Yeah.
And I froze. I was like, holy shit! Like, what do I do? I don't know what to do anymore, you know. And so like reflecting back, I mean, like I didn't want to leave the job at this point, right? Or
Right.
think I should. But I think over time was like the writing was on the wall, right? Like I can't do this for myself. Number one, it's not fair to myself to be healthy, and it's more importantly not fair to my family to have to continue this cycle of shittiness, right? so that's kind of where like Costa Rica came in play, right? Like we love traveling, we love the Hispanic culture. We our family, my wife and I specifically, like really see a lot of value in how they live their lives, and
Right.
um, so I mean, but at this point, I'm still like, okay, I'm still going to work a career. So like, I'm picking. We have these things called Kelly days that you cops don't get, which are paid
Yeah,
days
I
off,
know. I'm
so we
all
don't get
familiar with
overtime.
them. Right.
So yeah, I mean, like I had my schedule aligned so I could commute back and forth. We had a really flexible work trade policy, so I was able to like use all my vacation days and Kelly days to like kind of make this work. And then finally, like one day, I'm like, wait, dude, you're lying to yourself. Like you're
Yeah.
done,
Yeah.
right? And that was a very hard pill to swallow because, like I said, like that was my identity, and to admit to myself, like again, it's like a failure thing, right? Like you failed, like you can't cut it anymore. Like you're not that person you used to be. And at the time, I'm looking really down upon myself, but like now, I'm happy that I went through that, right? Because it really it brought on a lot of introspection, right? Of like, wait, hold on, you as a your firefighter doesn't define you as a person, right? Like it doesn't define you as a father, as a husband, right? And that so many firefighters and police and even military, right? We tend to
Get it twisted,
make
brother.
that our identity, right?
Yeah, we get it twisted.
So yeah, so I'm like, okay, I left the job like again to seek more treatment,
Yeah.
struggling, and then just like I gotta stop, you know,
Yeah.
and so I made the difficult choice to walk away, and that's where we continued on our Costa Rica journey for, I mean, a couple of reasons, right? Like I said, like we loved the culture, and obviously the weather's great, which is huge. We get tons of sun. The sun's up the same time every day and goes down at the same time every night, so it's really good for like healthy sleep patterns. And then it came down to like, my wife was a stay-at-home mom for years, and I was blessed to have that, you know, great paycheck and benefits that the union, fought for us and
Sure.
got. And we're very lucky in Washington State compared to a lot of other states of the benefits and the pay we have. And I took all that for granted, right? Because when I walked away and my employer's like, "Hey, you want your health insurance still?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like, how much is it going to be? $2,400 fucking dollars for your
Yeah.
family. Like,
No, that's a
dude,
huge nut,
that
man. It's a huge
that's like
nut.
my freaking that's my how am I going to afford this? Like, I
Right.
can't. And so that's a benefit of Costa Rica, right? Like they have a very good healthcare system here, um, and that we're able to afford now based off of like my pension that I my small pension that I have. But
Right.
there's no way like we could have survived in the U.S. right now with inflation and everything that's going on there without my wife having to work full time. Um, and I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm spoiled, or I kind of am. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but we wanted to be able to continue the lifestyle that we had,
Yeah.
um, and be able to be financially solvent, unlike we would
Sure.
be in the US. Because the thing that sucks, like there's lots of benefits. Again, Washington State's very progressive when it comes to like I'm blessed to get my retraining paid for. As we kind of talked about, I'm going into tech as my retraining plan,
Right.
and so I'm lucky in that. But um, eh, it's really hard to like find out what you want to do after you've put your whole identity
Yeah.
around.
Well, and that's where embracing failure comes in, because you can try whatever it is, and guess what? If it's not a good fit, you can walk away from it, because it's not a failure. It's you redefining what failure means. Failure now is an opportunity to learn more, to grow, and to rediscover
Mhm.
you. I mean, that's that's old you, old you would struggle with that.
For sure. And I've learned to embrace it, right? Like a big thing I had to like work through when I walked away was like, what, what, what do I have? Like, I'm not worth shit. Like, I'm telling myself like all these things. Like, how am I going to make money? Nobody's going to hire me. I don't have a college education other than a paramedic degree, associates in paramedicine, right? But then I like was able to like kind of. I'm big in like to very like go inside of yourself now and
Wait,
like
not for
kind of.
nothing, bro, but Costa Rica, you could probably be like a brain surgeon in Costa Rica with your paramedic stuff. So you're pretty,
Dude,
you're
I've had a couple.
pretty high on the pretty high on the hog there, my friend.
Dude, I've had a couple incidents. My mother-in-law actually a couple of months ago had a freaking heart attack here, like 5 hours away from the
Oh
hospital.
God.
And like, dude, that was crazy. Like that, but that set me off, right? Like that
Right.
kind of brought back up some
You
old
saved the day,
memories, right?
right?
So
Please tell me you saved the day, or this is really gonna screw up this
I did.
podcast.
I did.
Nice.
I'm on the phone with the doc. I'm on the phone with the doctor. Like,
You didn't
if it
forget all the shit you learned, did you?
no,
Oh,
not at all. So like, I'm driving her in like this next town over
oh,
where I'm thinking
man.
there's like a hospital, and
Oh,
there's
dude.
fucking not, bro. It's like
Of
this
all
like
the times not to have Google Maps. Oh my
exact.
God.
We had Google Maps, but there's no fucking hospitals close by. Like
Oh
we're
my
in the like
God.
middle of nowhere. And so I'm
Oh
like, I
man.
find this doctor's office at like 3 in the morning, and I'm like, hey, listen, I used to be a paramedic. I'm looking at my mother-in-law right now.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, she's having a freaking heart attack. Like,
Mm,
send me a helicopter. And he's like, we can't. I'm
mm.
like, what do you mean you can't? And he's like, it's not light out yet. And I'm like, shit.
Oh God.
And so they send a doctor from a neighboring town called Santa Teresa, and he gets there and like, I mean, I do my whole paramedic spiel and like do my
Right.
shit and like then he's like, I think I agree with you. Let's give her an EKG. And like he gives her an EKG. I look at it. I'm like, yep, she's for sure having a heart attack, right?
Right.
So she ended up getting flown out. But yeah, so that was an adventure. But
Right.
um, yeah, it brought up a lot of bad memories.
I bet it
Um,
did.
or
But
just with family and stuff,
right, man.
But
But you saved the day.
I wouldn't say I saved the day, but I helped expedite the process, I would say.
I'll say you
But
saved the day, bro. Yeah.
time is muscle.
Give me that latitude, will you? So you're in
See, that's the
Costa.
thing. I have a really hard time hearing that for me personally.
Yeah,
Like I'm just being honest with you right now.
yeah.
Hearing that is hard for me to actually feel
Well,
because
because you got to
it's
look
kind of
at
like
it,
a lot of
bro.
other first.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
I
could have
guess.
stood there and went, what do I do? Yeah, you fucking took action, man. You went to your default, man, which is fucking taking care of business, right? Because that's
That's
who
right.
you are now.
But
You're just a guy who does the right thing and takes care of business. If you see a situation, you take care of it. If it's with you, how
I'm
about
a
this?
problem solver.
Yeah, man, Andrew, what if you knew back then what you knew now? Because the big push now, obviously, is like you and I having this conversation, and even my own shit. Had I known back then what I know now about being vulnerable and having conversations and
Mm-hmm.
understanding that the importance of self-care and all that, I know I would not have had the hard time that I had. Do you feel the same way about that? Had you, because there's a push now to kind of bring this information to the troops, like hopefully like on day one, so they can start figuring out that, you're not the job. This job is not
Mm-hmm.
going to love you the way you love it. And don't lose your identity. These were things that were never said to me or you, I'm sure.
Mm-mm. No, not at all. I
Do
mean,
you think
I
that
was taught
helps?
like yes, I 100% do because when I started, it was you keep your mouth shut and
Yeah.
you don't tell people how you feel because if you tell people how you feel, they're going to pick on it, right? And so
Sign of
I
weakness.
think if exactly right,
Yeah. Yeah, man.
I think if I knew what I knew now, and that's a big push behind why I want to come out and talk about my
Yeah,
struggles
man.
because I think law enforcement, God bless them, and you know paramedics, firefighters, right? I think there's a there's an opportunity to have a very healthy career, right?
Right.
But it's
Right.
it's got to be that you prioritize yourself first, right?
Amen.
And making sure you're doing the right things to take care of yourself. And so I think if we can, especially like, leaders like yourself and people that are coming out and talking about this, like if we can have these open conversations and give these new men and women tools to succeed in their career and have a healthy career and not be like the guys that
Right.
leave and go to shit, right? I think we can make a huge impact on this new wave of people by just saying that it's okay to feel like this, but it's also you got to step the fuck up
Yeah.
and make sure you're taking care of yourself,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah. It's okay to feel
yeah,
that way. It's not okay to stay that way.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
tell me,
So
you've been doing some work here. I know you didn't want me to bring up the app and all that. That's not the focus of this podcast, but you're doing some pretty amazing things. Can you tell me what is it? Ciento?
yeah, so that siento means to feel in Spanish. So
See, I did not know that. I was like, I hope I say it right.
your Spanish is great, man.
There
You're
you
on
go.
point.
Well, I did
You're
live in
on a good
South
road.
Florida for a while, so it's probably some of it ran or rubbed off on me.
I can't understand that Spanish. That's a whole nother ball game.
Yeah, man.
That's like the Puerto Rican, like
There's a lot
Cuban
going
Spanish
on
is
there.
so fast.
A
Yeah, it's
lot
hard.
going on. So
Um,
you developed this
yeah,
app.
I
Talk
mean,
to me. A wellness app.
yeah. So we're not fully in development yet. And why I bring it up is that what we're seeking right now, right, is we want first responders and other high stress professions to be able to help us develop it. Meaning, we need feedback. We have a theory, or I have a thesis, right, that I feel that if we're able to share our feelings and our emotions openly and vulnerably in an anonymous based platform, that we can show other people that we can connect, that we're not alone, right?
Okay.
And through that we can heal. And so, like, I have some really good friends down here. Like, I don't know if I said this, but I wanted to go in the tech industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, like, I had, while I'm waiting for the bureaucracy of retraining to happen with any government, right? Like, I'm like, well, I'm not going to just sit here and do nothing, right? Like, you need to have purpose in life. So I
Right.
started to teach myself how to code computers and um, started thinking in like that tech like mind. And one of my good friends down here, he's in the tech industry and does like machine learning, artificial intelligence type stuff,
Right.
business intelligence. So I was having this shitty day, and you got to understand that, like, now I'm a totally different person with my friends, right? I'm very open about my struggles when I'm having a hard
Sure.
time, and they've accepted me, right? And like that has been the biggest change for me personally, of being open with my friends like that and realizing that people do care about you and they
Right.
understand when you're having a hard day, because I guarantee they go through the same thing too, right? And so I'm like, dude, I'm having this fucking hard day. I was super depressed. And I'm like, I'm really bad at expressing my feelings verbally, right?
Mm.
But I'm sure as hell good at one thing that really helped me through my recovery was journaling.
Oh,
I did a
okay.
lot of like writing about like how I felt, and because I was very bad about verbally talking about my feelings. Like
That's
all
okay.
I knew was anger,
Yeah.
you know? So he's like, well, I think there's, with all the new technology and that we could maybe find something with this, right? So we've come up with this idea of where you can anonymously post how you feel, um, and also be connected with others, and utilizing technology that is available to us today to also give you insight in how you feel. Like, what are your feelings that you're having? What are you actually talking about, right?
Right.
Um, and then that kind of has like, we got some other stuff we're working on too, like outside of this, that's kind of within the same platform, right? Where we did this like market research, and like we found that, like, and it was a small group, right? But it's like 130 people, and like less than 20% were happy with the mental health resources that they've received from their organization, right? And then that kind of like went into like the EAP programs,
Mm-hmm.
employee assistance programs, right? Like, I think any um, I'm trying to choose my words carefully here. There is a benefit to having programs like that.
Absolutely.
Where I feel that they go wrong is that they don't solve a problem, right? Our first responders are more likely not to seek help because they don't A, have access to care, and B, that they don't trust any provider, right? We want to see somebody that understands us, right? And I was blessed to have psychologists that only worked with first responders.
Right.
So that was awesome. And so like we've been kind of working with them of like, how can we actually solve this problem? Like how do we solve that main pain point of like you don't have, I have friends that call me all the time that are like asking like they want to know about like retirement. What if I retire early? They want these questions answered and they're too afraid to ask anybody. Or I need to go find a psychologist. I don't know who to go see. Right. And so the idea would be is that we could somehow help connect and be that middle person to do that. And I'm not going to get too much because that's not coming out. But so I'm going to end it with this, that like, I if you don't mind throwing up, it's www.ciento.ai, right?
Okay. And I'm going to put all that information in the show notes and your LinkedIn profile. So if listeners want to get in touch with you or ask you some questions, you'd be cool with that?
Absolutely. I'm an open book. And if anybody's ever struggling, like I'm an ear to listen to. And awesome, but right now, what we're really looking for is people to sign up for when we have our launch of the initial app, that we need help testing it and getting feedback, right? Because you don't develop this you don't think that there's a problem and then develop something that's not going to work. You develop as you go to create something that will actually be meaningful and make an impact on people's lives.
You're going to tweak it along the way. And that's what we're hoping. Yeah, man. That's great.
Yeah.
What's the I'm going to put it in the notes, but what's the site again for somebody if they want to be part of that beta testing and help you with the development of this by maybe providing some feedback? What's that site again?
So it's www.ciento.ai.
Excellent.
Don't judge my website skills too much. Luckily, I was working with some other people, but yeah, we help put that together. So that'll give people a good idea of kind of what we're doing for this base consumer model. And there's more things to come in the future. So yeah, I'm excited.
That's awesome. Hey, listen, I always ask the guests if, you've got a guy or a gal driving in to work, coming home from shift, maybe just left the firehouse, got done loading their car up with their bedding and their gear, and they're on their way home. And what's one thing you'd like to say to them if you could? And we'll close it out with that.
I think for anybody driving home right now, like it's the one thing I would tell you is to have hope, right? Hope is important. Have hope that things can get better. You're not alone. Reach out for help and surround yourself with people that will support you, and just have hope that things are going to get better, because it's possible. I mean, I still struggle today, right? But I still have hope every day that things are going to continue to get better, and I have faith in what I believe in, that it will.
Nobody said it was going to be easy, did they?
No, it fucking sucks. It's hard.
But it's what you do with it. Ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Douglas, brother, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your story. And I appreciate the invite to Costa Rica.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. We got a little rental down there, and so we
see how I did that.
We have a farm down.
You know how I just did that? See that?
Oh no, you're totally welcome anytime. We got a farm down here, and we got tilapia to catch for dinner. So
all right, man.
If you like fish, it'll be fun.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, take care. Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right.